Over and look at some greetings from friends all around the world.
Oh, no.
Hello, I'm Diogo Vasconcelos. I'm a producer and co-founder at Nerd Monkeys. I'm from Lisbon in Portugal, and here the game dev scene is slowly but steadily growing. I believe that streaming will have an important role in the industry. It will help connect developers and players, and it will help us find new ways of making games. I want a future that takes better care of people working in games instead of working them to sickness and burnout. It's far more important than any technological advancement.
What's up, devsTV? This is John coming at you live from Japan, and what I think 2020, 2030 is going to be like for games, I'm thinking that, well, blockchain will still be pretty big. That means games that use cryptocurrencies in order to purchase in-game items or to trade in-game items between users. That's going to be big coming in the future. And also maybe more cross-cultural games, games that can talk about other people's cultures in their countries. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan, over in the United States, and I want to be able to make games that can bridge a gap between Japan, where I am now, and where I am back home. So more community-oriented gaming. Check me out at IGDA. Looking forward to what you guys have to say about the future, and take care. Peace.
Hi there, I'm Chris Solowski. I'm a game designer and game theorist. I'm originally from the UK, but I live now in Zurich in Switzerland, where I manage the IGDA Switzerland chapter. How do I see the future of games? I believe that we're moving towards a golden age of game design, similar to what the animation industry experienced, where the practitioners finally arrived at an understanding of their new medium, which allowed them to create experiences that evoked an incredible sense of empathy. And we can already see it happening with pioneering games like Journey and Gone Home, but I think this is only a small glimpse of what's to come. Thank you.
Welcome back. So today we have some awesome guests here, and you're gonna get to ask some questions from them at the last 30 minutes of the stream. The stream is about 2 hours and ends at our local time at 7. And if you want to ask questions, go to future.devs.tv, or you can tweet with the hashtag FuturesDay or devstalk. So hashtag devstalk or hashtag FutureDays. So let's get started with the introductions. So if you go one at a time and introduce and tell a bit about yourself.
Yes, all right. Hi everyone, my name is Natasha Trygg, and what I do now is quite broad, but let's say I'm leading My Tale company as a CEO and creative director, and I'm currently a chairperson of IGDA Finland as one of the biggest chapters of IGDA worldwide. And to summarize more, like I'm also teaching game design and game art at University of Turku, so the rest can wait.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is KooPee Hiltunen. I'm the director of the NeoGames, which is the hub of the Finnish games industry. What I do daily is basically dealing with different kind of things with game studios, people studying games, companies giving game education, a lot of things. We do a lot of things with the politics in many different levels and all kind of boring stuff, so the developers don't have to do that kind of things.
Hello everyone, I'm Adnan Selimovic. I'm the founder of Data United, and I'm a researcher primarily based in Silicon Valley, I would say. My research background is in, used to be this weird thing, but it was, I was the first one to start studying gaming as a bridge between fantasy and reality in everyday lives of working class youth, and ended up actually writing a treatise that foreshadowed the rise of the alternative right. So since then, I've been doing consulting work in Silicon Valley, mostly helping VCs invest smartly by using subversive research. So, yeah.
So, hey everybody. So, name is Vesa Raudasoja. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland. Well, what I do is a little bit this and that. So, I'm a co-founder of the startup company devstalk. I work a lot with the game developer communities, so I'm the chairman of IGDA, and then also here in Finland I'm a vice chair of IGDA Finland. And also I've been involved heavily with the game jam scene, so I'm a board member of Finnish Game Jam Association. And then so what I do, well, I work a lot with developers, communities, well, helping them out, help companies, well, cities, country delegations, and well, roughly the same kind of things what KooPee is doing.
But less boring.
Less boring, I might say.
Everybody knows Vesa.
So we're going to talk about the future of games, and we should start from the beginning, from getting into the industry. So as tools are getting better and easier to use and more accessible, what are the trends to look out for, like, if you're trying to get into the industry in the next 10 years? Who wants to start?
Yeah.
Well, if I do start, I guess that getting to the industry, there is many ways to do that. If you are a young guy or girl who wants to get to the industry, there is many ways you can get to the industry. You can go to the game education, you can go to the, as Vesa mentioned, you can go to the game jams and find like-minded people on game jams. You can join IGDA as a volunteer and get into contact with the game developers network and that kind of stuff. But getting to the games industry I would say that it's not easy, in a way that it's relatively easy to develop games as a hobby, because as you mentioned, there is a very good tools for that at the moment. But if you want to make games as a profession, it should be considered as a profession. It's a job. It's a job, and for a job you need certain skills and certain qualities to be qualified as a game developer to a game developer company. So in that sense, game development is at the moment it's still fun. It's still fun, and people like to do it. But it's also a job which you should consider as a job.
Yeah, if I may add,
you can soften it up a little bit.
No, I don't know will I soften it up, because it's like it's fun. It's fun. Trust us, it's fun. Okay. Yeah. So no. Well, when it comes to getting into the industry, what KooPee just definitely, these are some of the most common kind of channels, or the ways how you can approach. But I would say first start with yourself. What is exactly what you want to do? Because game industry and game development, all in all, is multidisciplinary approach in every single game. So when you think about games that are not necessarily entertainment, but also edu and serious stuff, and also the, let's say, history-based games. So you need knowledge outside of just coding, which mostly it's taught to be tech-based, like background and so. No, you need variety of expertise in the development, and that's why, like, if you want to start to be part of the industry as a professional, first of all, see what would be your role there. What is exactly what you're into? Are you into art, tech, design, level design? There are so many different things you can do, or producer, leading the team. Like, what do you want to do? And from there, you see what skill set you might need to improve, because if you need to go to certain education, or you need to maybe get some mentor or advisor from the industry. So because industry, at least here in Finland, I must say, is very open to everyone. So basically, if someone has any question, just come and kind of talk. That's why also IGDA gatherings are mostly like, it's networking. You talk to each other and you figure out, like, we share all the bads and all the goods, and there's lots of bads also. So I'm sorry, I can't soften, but we share it. And so from at least these experiences, then we can, like, you can, or others can learn or see which way they want to proceed. But jams, for example, especially for younger ones, I would warmly recommend to attend game jams, and there are jams all the time. So Vesa might want to say more about that.
Well, yeah, actually, if I may, just thinking about the tools, what we can use nowadays on developing games. Because I still clearly remember, like, when I started with my first game company over 10 years back, there was like a time when everybody needed to build their own game engine. and the game engines you could buy was about $100,000, and it was like, you know, for startups, like just like crazy money.
We're not doing that.
and so nowadays you have got so many good, you know, just like mentioned, like basically Unity and Unreal and these kind of things. So there's a good way. There's like many ways to get to the industry, but of course more possibilities is more competition. But just to get the basic skills for game development, it's like, well, you can get tools for free. Well, I think, well, you can get like, you know, cheap computers, and the places where you can like practice the development. Well, you know, a lot of schools nowadays, like globally, I think, like, you know, every country have something going on. Of course, well, the online learning is like, well, getting bigger and bigger all the time. And of course, well, the game jams, what was mentioned, is like, well, you know, one weekend of like prototyping games gives you skills of how to work as a team, how to work, you know, on your specific field, or you can try like different things, like, you know, coder can be a graphic artist and musician and whatever. So, just saying, many things what I like the industry. One is that this is like creative industry, but this is still like tech industry, and, you know, combining all those, like, you know, best of both worlds, I would say.
That's interesting. So, kind of related. I'm not even sure if it is, but, you know, this discussion made me think of like how special that the big disjunction between millennials and prior generations, where, like, in my experience, I've noticed that a lot of professionals or like academics, people that used to work at universities as researchers, they can't find a place in those institutions anymore, or the work is just it doesn't justify. So we transition to try to figure out, like, okay, I am narcissistic, I want a part of the world for myself. Where can I still feel like a human being and you know, don't feel like a lazy bum who doesn't want to do anything for a living? And so I think gaming has come up for all kinds of humanities researchers, you know, data scientists, biologists, physicists that I know who end up in gaming.
The one reason of that is that there is more disciplines in games industry nowadays than there was, let's say, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, nobody had heard anything about community managers, and now they are one of the most crucial assets for game company, community managers. 10 years ago in Finland, there was, for instance, no HR in any company because the companies were so small. Now we have like 15 or 20 companies with very professional HR. And there is all this kind of disciplines and jobs which didn't exist years and years ago. And there is new jobs coming all the time. So in that sense, games industry is wider than ever. There is more room for different kinds of people, and it's also it's getting wider all the time. So in that sense, if you want to work in the games industry, don't only think that you should be you should be a designer or graphic artist or 3D artist or programmer. You can be many other things. And one of the things which I've noticed when I've been talking with young people is that they tend to think that they should stick in Finland, but that's not the story. If you are a game developer, if you are a game development professional, the market for your skills is global. So if you think about, for instance, Nordic countries, there is a lot of people moving between the studios in Finland and Sweden and even in Norway and Denmark. So even there is a lot of possibilities in the Nordic area, but the market is actually global. And for that reason, for instance, one of the basic skills you should have is English language, of course, different kind of theme skills, so that you can actually work in the theme. Different kind of human skills are important, and as Natasha mentioned, also this kind of general understanding about the many different things is something which is quite valid in the games industry.
Can I throw you actually one question here?
Sure, go ahead.
When you mentioned, that's true, but like, you know, 10 years back, that now we have like many professions, but it wasn't like 10 years back.
Yeah.
How about 10 years from now? is there something, I don't know, space engineers? We have space engineers right now, but what would be something just throw from the top of your head, what we don't have now, but we could have, like AR, some VR, community manager, what?
Yeah, I can start with this one
Yeah.
because it's I think just in my experience, because I work with bigger AAA companies, you see as the margins of profitability dwindle, there is a push to specialize the workforce so that we can get more out of people that we already have. So at some point it was okay just to be like, no, I'm a gaming psychologist, and people would know, okay, he works in user research. Now we actually need community development, group psychology experts, we need people to be able to moderate spaces where the only exchange is through writing. We need all kinds of specialists. Pretty soon we're going to need automation specialists for all kinds of personalization tracks.
Yeah.
And all of this is going to, for people who think that automation is going to take our jobs, be like, no, we're creating new jobs all the
someone
time.
has to take care of that one also. because
always somebody.
I mean, seriously, this is something like everyone is afraid of AI.
Yeah.
Just come on, like it takes so much, like to get to two computers to actually communicate. It's insane. So, but yeah, this is the when it comes to, I fully agree with that, and but that's where we again as humans, like we are in charge of, let's say, what how things and what we use that tech for and with. So that's where the minds come in, because I wouldn't be surprised if part of the like actual like programming side would be already pre-done by some. When it comes to we have randomized. I mean, there's so much stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like it's already there. But when it comes to something more like sci-fi and revolutionary, what I think Vesa is more heading towards. It's already, I mean, it's not much sci-fi, but it's more like you don't need to be at the spot with the team anymore in that sense. That's something that already I see with the professionals. Like we are talking about veterans who don't need to be, like you can work wherever globally, as KooPee also mentioned, without being in the same spot. Well, yes, meetings of course are necessary, but even that most likely is going to be somehow in some virtual meeting room where you don't have to be otherwise in the same continent.
But I guess that one thing we should always remember still is that okay, we are talking about very serious issues. We are talking about the technology. We are talking about making business. We are talking about psychology. We are talking about very serious issues. But games are fun. They should be fun for the players. So don't forget to have fun. Don't forget the storytelling. Don't forget that you are not slaves of the technology, but the technology is your servant. That should be always remembered when talking about games. Games are content. They are not softwares as softwares are usually
experiences.
seen. They are experiences,
exactly.
and that requires humans to design those things for the other humans.
Exactly.
Because if we forget the fun, if we forget the storytelling, we can close the doors and turn down the lights, and that was the story of the games industry.
But what happened already, and how I see games, I mean, currently, they are new medium of expression. I mean, with all the indie developers, and I mean, all that. So it's not about just what market demand is. It's like you have all these, artsy games expressing all sorts of different things and different issues and different whatnot through, like, what they see as what developers have fun with, or what they see valuable and want to share with the world. And then, of course, but this is one rule with the developers, like you as developer, you have to enjoy making your game, because literally no one else will enjoy playing it. It's because that's kind of usually the case. You can, players can smell it that you didn't have fun there. But yeah, at the end of the day, it must be fun.
So if I may just add to something Natasha said earlier, there is I find it hopeful to think that, as the future approaches, and we automate the boring stuff, that we will return to qualitatively human things like the story, character development, being actually spending, because in current production cycles, those storyline narrative a lot of times takes seconds, seat, especially if it's a brand that has had an IP that's had multiple versions. So it would be nice to see this, like, oh, humans for humans, like.
My favorite quote from myself is that
Here we
future
go.
doesn't exist, we create the future, we make the future.
Yes.
So it's not somewhere over there as an entity, we create it when we go.
So, as was discussed, like, as roles diversify and we need more unique skill sets, how will education kind of play a role in the future? Like, Supercell is now created the Hive, that which is trying to make programming more available, where you don't need any certain, knowledge level to attend. Like, you can be any age, actually. So how will education have to catch up now? Because I don't know, is there like a games community manager, like education, or?
Depends on the university. I mean that, like, but the point is that the skill set which is there. I mean, when it comes to the university curriculum, I mean, things are progressing, of course, as the industry goes. But let's be honest: if someone is passionate as individual towards some specific thing, let's say management or community, like Vesa, like someone who, like, no, just everyone knows Vesa. We'll get back to that. But then it's like someone who is open, and so if it's part of you, you shouldn't. You should always follow again back what really fits you. And that's what I'm at least telling every student, like, yeah, you can, and try during the studies, try everything. Fail as much as possible. Failure is the best thing ever, and this is something that, like, because everyone thinks that those who succeed, like, oh, it's only success. No, there is so much, I can't swear here, but so much failure behind that, even smallest success. That's the thing, like, during the studies, don't be afraid to try, do the worst things possible, because once you are graduated and you have to get a real job, basically that's the moment where someone actually, will look at you like the boss or so. So and also if you start developing your own company, even worse, because you actually have to really be in charge of yourself and your team. So yeah, but I would say try as much as you can, and trust your guts, and also whatever you even have as a hobby, it can always be useful in development, because that's the nature of our job. I mean, my background is in classical arts, and I'm a CEO of a company dealing with Excels and whatnot.
Literary science.
Literary science.
So yeah, this is like, you don't like, yeah, I can, make a perfect portrait of you, like in oil. But the thing is that, yeah, that is useful when it comes to concept art, for example, and that's what. So you can always use your skills and interests in different fields in game development. It's only about trying out. Don't be afraid to try. That's my biggest message. And if you fail, so what? Try again. Go back.
And you know what? In what you're saying, I see another thing of like, oh, I hope that's true. That will happen. That, there is this thing about everything that we like to do, like stuff that you would do without getting paid for, that ends up not being valued in the economy as much as it should. And gaming workers, by and large, have been super underpaid. Right? We're paid a lot less than all the other industries when you look at the skill sets that we bring to the industry. I think that is going to keep shifting. As universities, defund humanities and arts, there's going to be need for these for the industry of gaming. And so I think that there might be this interesting circle where, we're going to actually refund or put more money in educational institutions precisely because we need more agile, more multidisciplinarily trained. We don't just need coders anymore. We need coders that have an aesthetic sensibility.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yes.
We are all over the place with this question, so let's ask the next one.
Actually, actually remind me one thing. Like I was in one of the first game study schools in Finland, and I clearly remember the teacher said that okay, now you can fail,
Yeah.
And, you know, because it's gonna be like a way more, you know, it's gonna cost more like when you fail, like, you know, outside of the school. So we failed in school and, well, like, continued failing for a while after that. So, you know, paid my, you know, learning money there. But about the education and the future part is that, because like, well, you know, old school, well, you know, style, everybody needs to learn, you know, the same things, like going the same pipeline. And when you succeed, like, you know, when you graduate, like, I don't know, university or something like that, then you can start doing, you know, the thing what you really want. And like this day and age, what I really like is that people can like start expressing themselves like more early in their lives, like that high what was mentioned about that not being that strict, you know, like who's getting in, that do you need to have a diploma or not. But it's like, okay, who are you? And, you know, let's just see, like, are you a, you know, potential coder? If you're not, you know, go away. But if you are, you know, whatever background you have, you can, you know, go there. And so these kind of schools, but of course the like online learning things that we have, like a lot of things coming from well, you know, we got the best teachers, like making videos in internet, and then getting the, you know, the best tools and well, the teachers from that side. So, you know, that also like brings like world more together as well. Internationally, you're gonna have the same education, you know, what you're in Finland, Germany, USA, you know, Nigeria, like Japan, whatever. And you can start doing what you really want. And it can be like a niche thing, because, you know, you will find those educators and well, all the information you need. So.
But how do we figure out, like, how does young people end up knowing what they want to do? You know, how do you even, like, because I needed help with the language, you know, it's not just showing me that, like, oh, this is the spectrum of things, go fail, right, figure out, but really, like, how do we, if aspiring students or young people only get in contact with already established professionals, you know, I think there's a big gap there where we still can't see whether we can get there, and also, is this really what I want? Because it could be that I actually just like the person, or I want to be in a seat of power, or I want to continue the habits I have now into the future.
I would say that we should like test different things, because, you know,
Yeah.
first I was like studying as a programmer. Then I started doing like 3D graphics, and then I started like a game producer, and, you know, and all those things is like building up what is like my potential, what I really want to do in the future. So of course, like, you know, looking at the like economic values is like, you know, we need to have like taxpayers like as soon as we can on the right spot and everything like that, but that's not how the life works. So, you know, taste out.
And I think that it's not only a problem nowadays, it has always been a problem. I remember when I kind of tried to pick my professional career in 80s, it was very confusing. I didn't have any idea of what I want to do, and actually then I went studying literary science, which was not very viable if you think about from the money point of view, and ended up to the games industry through different kind of coincidences. And I guess that it has always been the same problem for young people, how to find their spot or their place in the life. But I think that the story is, as Vesku said, that we should let people try different things, and I think that's an industry. One of the things we should provide is the view to the games industry as a viable option for young people. So this is also something where you can get your money in the future. So there is this kind of viable option going to the games industry.
Absolutely, same kind of thing. I mean, as I mentioned, from classical art to PhD in art history and museology on art replicas, which basically, when you think about it, what on earth, but big part of my doctorate is about IP and copyright, which was super useful when you have to work with brands and IPs in games. So that's what I mean. Whatever you are doing, it is going to be useful for you later on when you get to the industry, because we need that knowledge from elsewhere. Like so there's just one example. So many others, like hobbies and so on. Whatever really inspires you, you can actually utilize that. But when it comes to finding yourself, I mean, as I said, artist, academic and researcher, and then developer in the sense that like more from the creative side and game design. But still, like you can change your career in that sense, like whenever. It's not like in gaming industry doesn't really have that sort of age. Sort of you have to do something before age of 25.
And I can console everybody that I'm 52 and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I'm a big boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Yeah. I believe in you.
It's okay.
Yes.
So one common question I get a lot is it worth it going to like getting a games degree, like specific in games? Because in the past maybe it hasn't been valued so much by gaming companies because there weren't that many universities was teaching it yet, and portfolios were and still are very valued. That why you want to do game jams too. But do you see that changing now in the future, that they are going to be more valued and game specific education is going to be more needed, or is it more that like you're saying like you could get a degree in anything?
Well, when it comes to game education, I think it's important that those who are educating in game education are actually also having the experience in the industry, and as well having this, because it's not just about industry changes on daily basis, and KooPee is here to step in at any moment. But seriously, stuff that has been working even a year ago, not necessarily be working now in the market, things go forward. So that's why all this sort of having it as education, it's not gonna work as such. You have to actually, you have to have a basic education in order to, I'll go back to art. You have to have a, you know, traditional set of things that you go through in order to know how to use those tools, what to do with that, and create something new. And that's where in the game education, the only thing I have a bit of issue currently, what I see around different universities, is that for example they get the newest tech, but no one even knows how to use it because these teachers not necessarily even touch that sort of stuff, and yet other teams, and so one thing is maybe literally to combine or involve the industry, like the companies, together with universities to actually do things together. Like in Kajani, we have a good case there with their system and having this sort of game academy or whatever. So it's kind of like including people from the industry to actually, when it comes to specific things. But then design and all of that is something that of course is a bit different topic, but I'm talking about the tech, if you think about the because new stuff constantly come, and even like devices that we use now are gonna be outdated in 6 months or a year, so you're gonna get a new phone anyway or a new that. So so the point of all is that we have to keep mindset like that you have to keep going with, otherwise you're like, the moment you think you know it all, or you stop learning, even as from the industry, you are dead. That's it. So it has nothing to do with the age again, or with the background. It's just like keep like figuring out things, and hopefully with the team, so that you are not alone. But you do it with your colleagues, friends, people from the industry. Like you figure things alone.
And I think that our thinking of professions is still in the industrial age. So we think that if you are exam as a welder, you are qualified professional, and you basically don't have to do anything because you have the exam. You have the exam, you have the paper, you can show a proof that you are actually qualified welder. But it doesn't work like that anymore. So game education, as almost all of the education at the moment, it's basically something which gives you the basic skills, and it kind of proves that you are able to learn. And basically, in the day one when you go to work in the game studio, that's basically the day when you're starting to get professional. But you never know everything, because as said, the games industry is changing so rapidly, and for that reason we should kind of adjust our perspective for the education. It's enabler. It doesn't provide solutions or answers about your professional level or career. It's an enabler which enables you to learn where to go as a professional. It was a very complicated explanation, but I think that you got my point.
Actually, one thing came to my mind, or it may be a bit vague of a topic, but talking about games as a profession, and maybe looking at like on the media point of view, because I remember it was roughly 10 years back when the game industry became like a real job in Finnish, in Finland. And this depends a bit about different cultures and communities where, like, on what point the industry is going on. But I think, like, in Canada, the game industry has been like a real job for, like, over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And now, but I've been traveling on different places. There's been like a place where I don't want to mention with names here, but places where like just now they are realizing that hey, this is a real job. You can buy bread and you can do also the products and business there. And on many rising game industry countries, they are still struggling to getting the kind of the feedback of the audience that okay, the games are like really at the job there is like whatever, like taxi driver or shopkeeper.
But this goes to the point you were making, which is that unlike this is why I like to come and work in Finland, because Finland is a state that recognized, oh, the bottom line is gaming brings a lot of tax money. We should invest our institutions into supporting this emerging industry. So they're thinking about it in a post-industrial sense.
Yeah.
Whereas in the US, you would still be like, gaming is big. Yes, we do. All of our workers are consumers, but they value the traditional, the industries as the ones, and I think that's where there's a failure, a disconnect.
Yeah, there is a lot of differences between Finland and USA. more or less obvious ones.
No,
let's not go to them at the point, but at this point, but we have been, for instance, Finnish games industry has been quite active towards the government since from the 15 years, and we have been basically dealing with the government, and we have been very proactive with the government, explaining what kind of beast the games industry actually is. And of course it helped us a lot that we had some early success stories, and then we had some like Angry Birds, and we had Supercell with Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Heyday, and so on. So it made it visible also for the government that actually there is some taxpayer potential in the games industry, and it's easier in Finland to do these kind of things than in USA, because USA is a big market itself. So there is a lot of things going on in that market.
So yeah, I have to say that it probably smooth things a bit when on the governmental side, when you see that the game industry is like one of the biggest taxpayers on the whole country, at least on the city level.
Yeah.
So
It smoothens things a lot.
So talking about like big success and a lot of money. So moving topic towards more game mechanics. We've seen recently like huge success with battle royales and loot boxes, and this kind of mechanics in the past years. What do you guys think are the next things that we need to look out for?
I can start this one. I'm super excited about this. I think it's already happening to a large extent, especially as larger and larger groups of people, gamers, especially in esports, are adapting games that have a set time, and it's a short period of time, and it's a repeating cycle. And what we're going to start seeing in this area is personalization of gaming experience based on the in-game tracking data. So the game actually starts to have a feedback loop with the user, with the gamer, and gives them precisely the sort of stimulation that they're asking for. Because I think the problems with even battle royale, or the issues of trolling and toxic communities, or people really being upset about loot boxes. This comes from us giving, as game developers, giving one formula to everybody in the world, and then you know, they have to cruise according to this psychological schedule. But if we were actually able to tweak it based on people, I think the satisfaction would go up.
I guess that's a good continuation for this games as services thing, which has been going on for years, and which is at the moment, which seems to be very strong. For instance, if you think about usually in the Finnish games industry, there is 150 to 200 games published every year. Last year there were only like 100 games. What was the reason for that? The reason for that is that nowadays the games are services which are basically continued. So if there is a successful game, companies tend to continue developing the game for the users. And this kind of tailoring per user, I think that is one of the future possibilities. So basically we all play the same games, but to a certain extent the game is tailored for my needs. And that's some kind of continuation for the idea how we make games not as products but as services.
Do you think single player games will go all like vanish, or
Hell no.
Never.
they still have a space in the 10 years?
No. Nothing is. I guess that nothing is going to go away all the way.
No.
So if you think about this, we go back to the history. We go Kekkonen era and before that. So there was a lot of discussion when the TV came. What is going to happen to the movie theaters? Well, they are still there. There was a lot of discussion what is going to happen for the books or when the e-book comes. They are still there. So that basically these are things which are basically layering. So I don't believe that single player games are going to go away, because sometimes you just don't want to be social. Sometimes you just don't want to be in community. You just want to shoot your ball to the head with your singularity, so to speak.
Let's face it, most of the gamers are enjoying very much single play. Let's face it. Like,
Give me a story, give me a purpose, tell me who I need to be.
and I'm in my fantasy, and
Yes, please,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody just give me a good story, you know?
Yes.
Once again, we come back to the storytelling.
Yes.
Because in a way, games are something which is only a framework, and your mind fills the gaps. It's basically the same story as when you are reading a book. It's only words, but your mind fills the gaps.
And we all experience it differently. So
Yeah.
if you and I
Yeah.
read the same book, we
Yeah.
will experience it differently due to our previous
because
experience.
we have different point of view.
Yeah, and that's where I'm a big believer, because actually the company what I'm leading now, we're exactly doing that, like story-driven experiences tailored for each individual like that, but not. So this is where I see the future. But of course, with the different trends in different markets, which also brings us to the loot boxes, is something that, again, different players, different markets, differently approach
Different
this.
point of views.
Different point of views and different legal aspects of it as well, regarding especially the loot boxes. But if you are heading towards what's the next big thing, nobody knows.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
the
of course.
fact. So whenever they're like, what's next? Nobody has a clue. So, and of course, when it comes to publishers or investors even, it's like, of course, they don't want, they minimize their risk. So they want to have already something that works. So another copy of something that kind of, but basically the fact is that next big thing is nothing to do with standards now. So it's going to be something that's gonna break those rules, and usually has been. Each one that got success, especially this sort of success, was something completely unexpected because it was not meant to succeed. So let's see, but otherwise for the loot boxes, maybe again KooPee can.
about what is the future big thing, another option is that we know what it is, but we don't want to tell it.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, that's true.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Especially from the NeoGames side, we don't want
Loot boxes. There has been a lot of debate about the loot boxes, and it seems to be that there is also controversy in the regulation in, for instance, the European Union area what the loot boxes actually are. Some of the countries see them quite straightforward as a gambling. Some of the countries see them as a lottery, which requires a permit, And so for some country, in some countries, from the legislation point of view or regulation point of view, they are just one game mechanics, which can be used in many different ways. And there is a lot of different kind of interpretations about what the loot boxes are. But I guess that loot boxes kind of tell how the games industry works. Games industry has always been ahead of the progress. So we have been, there is many first things which have been first tried in the games industry. And also this kind of monetization mechanisms, they are quite often first tried in the games industry. And some of them work better than others. Some of them get regulated because the government or the public authorities see that they are, for some reason, they are illegal. And some of them are voted out by the consumers, because we have seen things which didn't go through, which didn't continue because the consumers didn't want to them. But I think that the prime thing with this kind of phenomena like loot boxes is that we should be always able to try, and we should have right to try different kind of things. And if the authorities says that this is not the way to do it, then we just have to adjust to the authorities. But of course, at the same time, we should give the authorities correct information what these things actually are, so that they can make educated decisions about those. So it was a very complicated explanation again. But basically saying that loot boxes are not good or bad, but they are something we should figure out how to use this kind of mechanics in the games, or should it be used, and which kind of games it might suit, and what the loot box actually is.
I really hope that we can get. Were you gonna say something, Vesa? Sorry, I didn't see. Go ahead.
I was just like just saying, like, well, of course, like games are business, and well, some mechanics works and some mechanics don't. Yeah. And it's of course, like game industry, like many industries, are just like a guessing game. It's like what's gonna happen in the future, and let's try to do the thing that people will like. And but still, the like companies need to run, and of course, well, money is needed. So the constant like battle that how to like keep players happy, but still you can like continue the development of the game. So that's something, and then I think we might see like different kind of like tryouts. Because like thinking of like the whole like free to play thing is like I would say like roughly 10 years old, like on like mobile markets. So when it came, like what do we think of it then? It's like, okay, is this something gonna stay, or like something fun? And then now it's like it's one of the biggest things,
It's the de facto model actually.
Yeah. And then so I'm thinking like let's look at this, and like the next 10 years there's still the free to play thing, or is there like other ways of like revenue models? Like we have
there will be revenue models. There is no doubt about that.
So
I'm glad that we got away from the question of like, is gaming good or bad? Are loot boxes good or bad? Because I don't think we can make those sort of assessments.
No. Yeah.
What's much more interesting to me is, and I've spent a whole lifetime doing this, 15 years now, of just being fascinated by the connection between what we do privately and the lives that we can't escape. So there used to be this thing about ideology. Ideology is a story we tell ourselves because we have to live this life. And gaming, I understand the same way. As historical time moves and we find ourselves in different crazy situations, we get attached, attracted to the kind of stimulation that's going to offset the negative in the everyday life. So we play the kind of games that actually give us comfort, even if the game itself is really stressful. So I don't think that it's actually a coincidence that loot boxes appear. Around 2012 they start to be pinged into games, and then it gets a little bit stronger and stronger as the loot box economy and the free-to-play economy start to merge. But another thing that's not surprising is Battle Royale, that film from 2000, the Japanese film, becoming a scenario for how the things that we do to each other privately after we come back from work. So
Nothing better than kill your friends in the free time.
Yeah, drop us on the island.
That's standard.
Yeah, last man standing every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating
Yeah.
storyline.
Yeah.
But the Master of the Flies, William Golding, Master of the Flies, basically it's a battle royale in a way.
Yeah.
But there is of course another point of view, the gamer's point of view. Me as a gamer, if I think about spending money in games, is it loot boxes or is it free to play or is it some other model? As long as I don't feel like I'm cheated, it's okay for me. As long as I get basically value for the money, it's totally okay for me. But when I feel that, if I have the feeling that I am cheated somehow, the game has cheated me to do something which doesn't bring me any value. If it does like constantly, kind of pulling my leg, then I just stop playing the game. And from that point of view, it's not only a matter of regulation for the or fairness or ethics for the game developer studios, it's also a matter of money. Because if you do it wrong, the consequence might very well be that the gamers they just go away. They abandon you, they go away, they stop playing your game. And that's a very kind of pragmatic thing which might happen if you do things in a wrong way.
Yes.
Which also happened if you think about this first loot box case, the Battlefield thingy. So what happened to the EA? The stock price dropped 3 billion in like 2 days. So it was kind of really very real loss for the EA. Battlefield.
To add to your point, which I think is important to notice, is that gamers are they're starting to. In the U.S. Youth don't practice the democratic political intent, but we use our voices.
Yeah.
What is that, review bomb or something? Where you go on Steam and if a company has done something that you don't like, start showing them. We can actually show them now, and all of a sudden numbers matter. So there is this thing of like gamers are also gaining a voice as active participants in development, which you guys might
And
not like.
they can always vote with their wallets. That's always the good old-fashioned way.
Yes.
The best feeling is like when you find the game and you have the feeling that just take my money, give me the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to add to just, I think that there is also a big part with the different markets when it comes to games being, because when you think about quantity of players and when you think about Asian market, I mean India, and then you have and they are not necessarily. I mean, again, depends on a game and a genre. But speaking of the payers, I mean, most of the money from there is from the quantity and from the ads and whatnot. So unlike someone who is from the West and who is gonna go to shop and buy stuff with credit card, because let's be honest, not necessarily everyone has out there credit card.
Right.
So there's so depending on the market, depending on that's where developers have to also knowing your audience, knowing your target, knowing your market is crucial, of course, like in any other business. So it's not like something different in the gaming industry. It's like any other industry. You just need to know your target audience and everything that comes with it. So, but yeah, definitely be having a common sense in your design to have so that you don't offend the player, that you don't. Pay to win is definitely not gonna.
not in Western markets, but if you go, for instance, to Asia, I don't know what is the situation in Asia at the moment, but it used to be that in Asia they tolerated this kind of pay-to-win gameplay way better than in the Western markets, because it was kind of way to show your status.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so it's very different thing when you go to different parts of the world, when you talk different kind of games, when you talk different kind of target audiences, when you talk different kind of game mechanics. So making hasty decisions based on individual things is always very dangerous, because all of the, for instance, if you think about the regulation, all of the regulation have consequences which we don't anticipate when we are actually designing the regulation.
And business model has to be hand in hand with the game design. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
If something works for that game, doesn't mean that it's going to work with your game. So you have to really figure out the model that works for your design, that works for your players. And you have to test so many things. And yes, test. That would be something that please people test. Especially for the starting teams, that would be the highlight.
Yeah.
So the important thing is to keep your players in mind and keeping them happy, and that leads then to the question, kind of leading towards like developers should also be happy and have a voice, and just like the players. And recently there's been certain events in the US who have led to discussions about game developers unionizing and going that direction. So how do you feel about the unionizing, or are there other solutions to this problem of developers also having a right to salary and rights?
Who is gonna go?
I can do it. The libertarian in the group, I mean, if unionization happened in the US, those jobs would go to places where there are no unions. So in order for game developers to keep their jobs and to actually stay on top of the market and be able to participate and direct where it needs to go, we have to find alternative structures that work for us. We can do profit sharing on the go, as a small group, but really I think it comes down to like sharing, like having communities that are actually valuable to the person's personal or like worker journey.
Again, I think it's very connected to the market and this particular law and the country itself, because I mean in Finland there are many unions, and definitely I am totally for the unions. So when it comes to that, I mean when it comes to like here it works, so therefore it's like I mean I'm in a part of the union, but there is no gaming union here, so let's see how that goes. But yeah, it's like when it comes to specifically for game developers, again, it's kind of tricky. The only thing that I see tricky is that like with all this variety of knowledge and backgrounds that we come from, how do you put yourself, because all these unions are somehow focused on a certain skill set or something, some background. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in Akava as a teacher, researcher, and whatnot, like humanist, and so it's like from there, like I don't think they would have. Is it possible to have someone from the tech, or other way around? Because the engineering union is not there, so it's like they wouldn't take me, most likely, and so it's like I think it's I know it's a debate, but when it comes to, I think it's there is a certainly different views towards the unions. All in all, like people have different opinions and views, especially for the gaming. Let's see where it goes. Whatever happens, if there is a union specifically for that, let's see how is it established that actually addresses all the things, all the needs of the developers, no matter of their kind of which part of the creative process they belong. I mean, because it's all part of the game development needs. So let's say community manager or producer or backend developer, like it's different skill set. Like how do you? So yeah, but I mean, I would like to see a union for game developers, definitely. But now, how it's gonna work? Let's see about that.
Yeah, there's intermediary steps too, right? Like that. I know, like in a lot of companies, there is an HR department, and then like you have your manager, and you can check in with these people about life-work balance and how things are going. Yeah. But what if I actually have much more complicated issues, like cultural issues, gender bias issues? Yeah. Can I really go to these places? And we need alternative structures. Maybe there's solidarity groups of workers within different departments in But the idea of some intermediaries so that we can start scaling the right things, and not because my sense is that looking at the thespians or like actors union in the U.S. Most of the issues that we actually need to get addressed when it comes to work-life balance in during crunch times, when things get really stressful, where people get burned out, they can't really do anything about that.
And I think that is so different. The union is kind of obligatious thing, because do we think about the union as an entity which takes care that all the people working in the games industry are treated fairly, they get their fair share of the they get their fair salary and so on and so on. If that's the union what you mean, then hell yeah, of course we need a union, because if you are working in the some industry, it's your profession, you should get paid, and or you should get the proper remuneration for your work. Let's put it this way, because this is topic also. But if you talk about the union system, as it is in many countries at the moment, the system was developed, for instance, in Finland like 100 years ago, and as Natasha mentioned, if you think about the games industry, for instance, there is no employers or employees organization who is actually who has knowledge enough about the games industry. So that basically means that in Finland we have this collective bargaining agreement system, which basically means that if there is a union for Finnish game developer, people working in the Finnish game development industry, it could lead to the situation when we would be under a collective bargaining agreement which is made for somebody else 30-40 years ago, and it just doesn't make any sense. So in that way, the union system is different thing as union as an entity, and the union is not a synonymous thing for fair treatment in the industry. So that's kind of it's all once again it's pretty complicated, because we are a new industry who is trying to build things on top of the old system, and to a certain extent we have to be able to cope with the old system, but without losing things which are valuable for us, for instance. So I didn't answer anything. Again, I didn't answer anything. But there is a bias in a way that of course people should be treated fairly. In that sense, idea of unions is good. But if we have to go to the old system, which is in Finland, it's very rigid, and it was built 100 years ago, and it's industrial era system. So that's something which I don't see viable for the games industry at the moment.
Do you think that it might have to do with the fact that slowly but surely we're taking games more seriously as like part of our lives, as part of the economy, as a viable way of making a living, and as that happens, it shifts. These boundaries are shifting between what's in fantasy, what's in real life. Like what do I have to suffer? Do I have to be working? Poor schmuck Joe, and and like really hate my job? Can I like my job in some ways? Is that okay? It's
it might have something to do with it, but on the other hand, I see that it's a kind of it's a kind of collision of the new way of thinking and the old way of thinking, because in the old way of thinking, employers were here, employees were here, and basically if there was always a clash between these two clans. So there was always a clash between the best interest of employers and their best interest of employees. But if you think about the global industry in a large scale, for instance as a Finnish scale, I don't see this kind of clash anymore. Because if the employer is doing well, usually it means that also the employees are doing well. If the industry is doing well, it usually means that the individuals in the industry are also doing well. Because we are living in a market economy, and if you think about for salaries and things like that, when the industry is doing well, the salary level is rising. So, and this is the old kind of thinking versus the new kind of thinking, that actually we are rowing the same boat, and in this occasion we are even rowing to the same direction, which wasn't the case always. But this is complicated. It's complicated because there is old structure and new structure, and old way of thinking, new way of thinking, and we should combine the best parts of these two worlds to get kind of this kind of union system, which is good for everybody.
But when it comes to this sort of employer-employees, also, if at least in Finland, you can really notice more that there is not even that hierarchy inside the companies, that everyone is pretty much, you know, feet on the ground and doing stuff together. So there isn't like not this sort of bossing around. It's none of that. It's all team effort and teamwork. So it's like at least with the smaller teams. Like again, we're not talking about the AAA studios, and which of course they have to have their system, and especially when the studios have their offices worldwide. But you know, like here at least you can see that, you know, things like that are also, there is a thinner line there between this sort of like, it's more of the leader and not being than bossing, and that's at least here that I noticed.
How do you see that? Like now they're big like AAA studios, and then you have someone who's like Supercell, who is based on like small teams. Is that the future to go forward? That maybe the companies will become smaller, or is there a trend towards that?
Depends on the company strategy, like, and what they are developing, like what their goal is. Like again, Supercell model might work for some companies, but not for other, and so forth. So this is like, it really depends on teams' own vision and what they want to do with the genres that they are dealing with the markets that they are dealing with, target audience, everything. So it really depends. But I personally enjoy working in a smaller team that you can actually, the communication is much easier.
I think that well, of course, like depends on the like companies and the projects. But the idea of like really effective teams is like well, with a small team you can do big things. But you know, when we go triple A, there's like a lot of like graphic, you know, assets you need to do, and these kind of things. So it like needs like a lot of like human resources. But also the thing is like, now we were earlier talking about the tools and then getting better, and you know, there's like ready-made like assets what you can use. So I would see that the teams are like more agile of like, you know, what's happening in the future, and then with a smaller team, you know, you can do like a bigger and greater products.
And I think that from in a company level, even in company level, it boils down to the question: what is the best way to utilize the skills and assets of the employees? So if it's small teams, then it is small teams. But if it's some kind of assembly line model, which it might be, in some cases it might be assembly line model, well, use it then. So it's about the company, about the best way to utilize the skills of individuals. But on the other hand, if you ask what is going to happen to the studios in the future, I guess that my prediction, I usually don't predict anything because I'm so often wrong with my predictions. But my prediction would be that the studios are getting bigger because of economical reasons. So for instance, in mobile side, user acquisition costs are quite high at the moment, and you need to have more resources for different kind of things, and of course more funding. And that seems to be leading us to the bigger studios, or a merger of the studios, so that they can gain a bigger size. Small studios, big studios, acquiring smaller ones. But I guess that it doesn't mean that the workflow has to become more kind of rigid or more kind of assembly line oriented. It might well be going to the other direction. But as Natasha said, it depends on what the studio is actually doing. Are they making AAA, or are they making hyper casual games like 15 games per month or something like that? So, or is their model basically that they are doing this kind of hand-built, high-quality kind of games, which are tested like 544 days before launch or something like that? So it's totally depending on. But once again, the studio has to find its own way.
I feel like that was a cop-out answer, though. Because I didn't hear both of you guys. You didn't say about the trend. Can you give us some trend that you think we're heading into when it comes to this topic?
I said the trend. Studios are getting bigger, but it doesn't mean that it's getting more kind of mechanical work. I said a trend.
That's true. You did.
Has predicted.
At least with the experience that I have so far, I just can talk about my experiences. I would prefer, instead of having hundreds of people in my company, I would prefer outsourcing to other teams and working with other teams like that. Again, cheaper tax-wise, and many other ways. And so I would do that. So core team stays as a core team, and the rest is outsourced. And like that's how I see it. But then again, depends. Like depends on a company. Like it's and the products they're working on and what they're and do they have multiple meaning completely different projects and divisions that they are dealing with. Like it's really depending on so many things within the company. So it's easy for me to talk with a team of 10, but you know, if you have and kind of that's where I want to kind of stay. But when it if you have, you know, 150 people and then, you know, need to expand and so there is a lot of questions there, and how you want to reorganize, because you want to use the best out of these 150 people if you have them, as much as those, let's say, my 10 people in my company. So it's like that doesn't mean that someone has to be pushed to do outside of their know-how or boundaries, but no, just different. It's all about managing and making sure that what fits everyone for that particular project and their timeline, and what is feasible in that time that you have for that project. I mean, again, we go back to so many things, but that might not be the answer to this question. But however, like, yeah, it's all the part of the production and how the team itself is managing own things. No matter what's the size, it's about the project and the timeline.
Yeah. But does game developers have more tools that they can use? More tools have been standardized, so tech is out there that we have much more readily available. You know, there are even open source graphics engines that you can use. You know, there's all this, you know, analytics backend, all kinds of stuff you can do by yourself, and then you put that sort of mechanical sort of standardization in the context of decentralizing, meaning we can access the global pool of talent. Those two things combined would do suggest that you have, okay, so we're heading towards smaller, leaner teams that are much more agile and dynamic. Yeah. And a lot of them, if not most of them, you know, they'll have a CTO, so they'll have a technical person, but they will be creatives that are managing and overseeing the production of the, you know, what is now becoming remedial work. You know, it's like somebody has to color in every pixel, so I don't want to do that.
And we tend, for some reason, we tend to think quite often that the system is an enemy of creativity. It's not. It's the best friend of creativity. In a way that when you have some system going on and it's tailor-made for its purpose, then you don't have to think it anymore. Yes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time there is some kind of thing going on. You have a system, you use the system and the resources which you used to use for pondering what I do with this or that, they can be used for creativity, for creative purposes, for creating something new or for producing something new. And in that sense, we also should see that system and creativity, they are not enemies, and chaos doesn't mean creativity, it just means chaos.
I think of like, because nowadays with tools and everything, so we live in a global world, but we can use like the best people and the best tools like around the globe, you know, and get the best animators, I don't know, from South Korea, and designers from Finland, Switzerland, and that's like put all of them together. So that's like one of the a really beautiful thing now and in the future, just like, you know, and the whole network is like community, and these things are like working so well that, you know, getting help, you know, other side of the globe, it's like, you know, it's doable and it's easy, and, you know.
Yeah. So maybe in the future we are also going to see this kind of production houses or producer houses, which are not actually not developing games, but they are producing games using themes here and there and everywhere, and kind of collecting things together, making a brand, doing the branding, doing the marketing, doing the project management, but actually the work, the development work is done in smaller studios.
Yes.
Maybe the actually you could say like the wrong question is like maybe companies could be any size, but maybe the trend is that teams will go smaller because they can be more agile and outsource and work more efficiently because of
I mean,
tools.
they can become part of this umbrella when you think about. I mean, bigger companies are buying these smaller companies to get the brand on top of that company, but still that stays the same. So, I mean, when it comes to like teams are doing their best, and therefore like when some bigger company sees the talent and grabs it by buying that company, I mean, of course there are some stuff that they will change there, of course, within this structure, but still the idea is that if they bought it, they like it how they're doing, they're most likely gonna like they trust the guys, otherwise they wouldn't buy them. Like when it comes to this type of purchases, when you really want to acquire the talent that you have been working with for so many years and you want to keep it. But yeah, it's I agree with Copper. It's
But talking about the global talent pool, like IGDA released just recently, like Finland is the most active part of IGDA, and are we see any trends there for the game communities? Are they going more global? Are we becoming more like globalized, or are we still like because you can see Finland also like are things going to Tallinn and other places too, kind of infecting.
Yeah, well, I would say that the locals are going globals. Yeah. It's important that you have the local scene and the local community, but the networking part, because now, like if we talk about IGDA, we have like roughly 150 chapters and 6 around the world, like 60 something countries, which is easy way to if you're going to go to let's just say like USA, and then you will find like IGDA things there, and then easy way the network. So once again also that's comes on the point that sharing the information, sharing the experience, like finding new business partners and so on. So because well my vision is that we are becoming like more united with the like in global level. It's like the game development it's pretty much similar like every place you go, but there's like different like flavors like with the culture, with the languages, with the history and everything like that. But still it's like one thing like what combines us all. And so yeah, so in short, I would see more international level of like we're working networking, working with people and working with it's not only the project, but but it's like fun to have like friends like all the globe.
That is, but when it comes to IGDA Finland, well, we have, I mean, I think one very strong thing about us, besides this whole community, which was even kind of being there in its core, even from the beginning, when it comes to like friends from the Nokia time and before, like developing stuff and being there, so it's the same people are still around. But the thing is that we have 12 hubs in major cities, and they have their activities locally. So this is not about, it's about waking up and being active and making impact on a smaller local level, and then on the national level we support as IGDA board, I mean Finland's board and everything. So basically we empower these hubs to do whatever fits their communities, because it's a different thing what works in Turku and what works in Kajaani or what works in Tampere and so on. So
except the beer. It works everywhere.
Yes, sure. Whiskey for some of us, but okay. And so it's like it's but whatever works for them, and we are there to help. So this is but it's again most important thing that everyone feels included, respected. So we are also with the code of conduct really rigid there. So it's just common sense, be nice, and like it's that's the biggest part of and friendly, because we are friends in the industry, and it's also something what we have when we go abroad. There's usually a Finnish table, like on the,
some of those.
Yeah, there's but trying to break that. So for example, also when I bring our students to any event, they usually of course like no out spread. So it's like you know, meet others, network. It's not that, no need now to be super open, especially if you are introvert, but it's about like, you are here now, talk to another person. He or she is equally, you know, like awkward as you are. We are nerds, but it's like, don't be afraid to communicate. And this is where the IGDA gatherings are very helpful in that sense, because there you get to open with your people, with, you know, so much common things there. So you don't feel that you are outsider by any means. And if anything like that happens, of course, we are there to make sure it doesn't.
But if you ask the historical trends, or if you take a look at the historical trends, IGDA was established around the same time as NeoGames, 2004, 2004, for first time. And I wasn't, of course, in the first meetings, but I heard that they were held in William K. with some like 20, 25, 30 people attending. And slowly they have moved to the Maxim in Helsinki. And now I guess that the biggest number is around 700-800 people.
Yeah, around 800.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it has been the growth of IGDA from the day one to where we are at the moment. And what I have seen during my years in IGDA, since I have been, I was attending first time in 2005. So the it has also changed who are attending at IGDA at the moment. So back in those days we didn't have many people outside Finland. We mostly had people from the companies, so who were working in the companies, even CEOs. Nowadays, when you go to IGDA meeting, there is a lot of people who are outside Finland. There is a lot of people who are actually studying the games industry, not professionals yet, not working in the company. And in that sense, the IGDA has changed quite a lot during these years.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And also how we have been, because things have been growing, we also have to change the structure within the association that fits again Finland and what Finnish developers need. And that's what we are, with of course having the mission and vision of IGDA org, because this is what we also strongly believe in and message forward. But again, what works in Finland not necessarily would work in some other country, and so on. So we can only speak about that, but this is at least what works for us, and what makes us so strong is that this sort of, through these hubs, we really empower locally that hobbyists, students, you don't have to, like, everyone is welcome. So this is something that is very unique in that sense, and we are proud of that.
So I have like a thing of my own history experience. Like when I started my gaming career, like something 20-something years back, it was really hard to find like-minded people, like developers, or who to talk with, or change ideas. And now, of course, the default, interwebs, yes, and so it's really more easy to find local communities, local like-minded people. And there is IGDA. There's a lot of different kind of like game developer communities around the globe. Many different kinds, only one country. So I think like predicting the future, that I can state as a fact. The future is in game development communities. That is something. Because as we see in this good example in Finland, how the whole community has pushing the whole industry forward a lot on these past 15 years what we have had here. So and I'm seeing this is happening every other place in this planet as well. So support your local community.
Yeah, and communities are very crucial in a way that the more the games industry becomes a mainstream industry, the bigger is the risk that we lose the creativity. That we, as Natasha said, we start doing sequels to the old games. We are basically repeating the old patterns over and over again. And for renewing, we need new ideas. We need indies who are crazy enough to make those new ideas happen. we need game developer community who can contemplate these things and discuss about these things and design these things, who can actually support each others to developing something which we don't know yet, but which is new in 5 years.
Exactly.
So,
That's our duty as developers,
Yeah.
is to question and experiment
Yeah.
with the given things,
Yeah.
from the tech to storytelling to experiences to all of the immersiveness, everything that we enjoy as players but also as developers. Like, that's especially as indie, as finally indie myself. It's like, oh, that's sort of like being able to really break those boundaries, because that's our duty. It's because we know what works, or at least what currently works on the market, but it's like, is that really what you want to do for, even next year?
And there is going to be, we are going to be challenged in the future.
Of course we are. Yeah,
It doesn't
and it's
mean
not gonna work.
Battle Royale doesn't mean that the Battle Royale is going to be forever the top thing in the games industry. It won't. We don't know what the top thing is going to be in 5 years. And for figuring out what kind of possibilities there is, we also need this kind of development, which is not totally market driven.
Yes.
Go crazy with the ideas.
Yes.
Go crazy, like the whole like game jam. Like.
Yeah.
That's where the game
the
jam.
system is like just like like prototype, like
Yeah.
go wild.
But game jams as companies, so this is something really important for the companies to use the whole game jam culture for their own, keeping up the drive inside. Even if you're working for a publisher,
Yeah.
even if you're working for something that might be draining you, it's still like, do the game jams as nothing else as a team, and it doesn't need to be a weekend. Have a week of game jam and make like something that you can really proudly present. But that's why game jam games are mostly more engaging and refreshing than many games out there, but especially on the mobile market. So it's like
game jam thing is like you can with prototyping like a weekend or a week. You can make the next big thing, on the idea there, or at least you learn something from that process.
Yeah, exactly.
The next thing will be even better.
Mhm.
So I think because there's I think like old school way of like making games, that you have hierarchy and everything like that, and then it's like new, more agile way to see things. But not going any details, but.
But when it comes, you mentioned something really nice when it comes to when you were younger and you could, at the beginning, and finding your people.
Yeah.
Well, imagine being a girl, a gamer, hardcore gamer, in Belgrade, where it's definitely not a girly thing to do. But my parents were gamers, so I was like, that was my thing. Yeah, I know, right? But the thing is that, like, this is how I was. But I was black sheep because of that. Like, I had absolutely, so I hang out with guys, and that was all fine. But the thing is, like, now I see more girls really being, and there is now space for being a gamer woman or
It's
any other gender.
accepted.
Doesn't matter how one finds it,
But it's important.
him or
that women
herself.
are-
Yeah, and
absolutely.
that's also like, I'm very happy about that change, because my daughter now, who is turning 10, is also like part of like this thing, and for her it's completely different. Now I see from her comments, I'm like, oh my God, maybe this is the generation that actually will, like have this whole thing that's completely different from what we have been struggling.
And I have to mention always, there is like 20 years ago, for instance, there was also age gap in the games. It was unheard of that somebody over 50 years was playing games, because it was for young people only. It was like teen boys or early middle-aged guys, the gaming. Nowadays, there is a lot of also elderly people playing games. So this has been more equal in many ways during the years. So that the age doesn't matter anymore, the gender doesn't matter anymore.
Borders don't matter.
Borders don't matter anymore. In a way that when you are in gaming world, you are in global network of people.
So same thing as a developer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The age isn't the thing anymore. It's like a way of coming from.
Absolutely.
So I have one last question before we move on to the QA in just a moment, because we're running out of time. Yeah. but this is more like maybe we can go one-on-one and just
Oh no, and I'm first.
Yeah, we can go Vesa first.
Yeah. Not to show on first last
You
time.
fine.
Okay, hit it.
So the question is,
Band-Aid. Yeah.
what phenomena what are you most excited to see, develop in the next 10 years? What are you excited about in
I'm
games?
excited about tailored experience, especially in this narrative-driven things, because finally narrative is going to more than just PC, even that I'm a PC geek, but it's part of now with all the wearable technologies also we can do that, and immersiveness with the AR, VR, all the cool stuff mixed together. So yeah, basically tailored narrative experiences, that's where my heart is, and I see that as something that definitely will benefit also other industries, not just gaming.
Okay.
Well, when it comes to games, I will probably in 10 years be playing World of Tanks because I have been playing it for 5 years already. But what I would like to see in the future, and all this my kind of greatest wish, is that we can maintain this community in the Finnish games industry. So I would like to see that in 10 years' time, although the games industry will be bigger, there will be more controversies, there will be more this kind of seeds of argument. We still have the community which can cope with the different issues like it has been doing so far.
How do I follow these?
The last one.
Well, I'm really excited to see what comes after this the last 7-10 years of gamers basically being reduced to thinking that they can work in the game and that this is satisfaction. I'm waiting for that coin to flip. And so when we start having fantasies of automating things, when I want to shortcut all that work that I was supposed to do, all that grind, how do the games change then? So that's, I think, my big thing is automation is coming in, all little vestiges around us. Let's see where it takes us when it comes to how we enjoy play.
Yes.
Yeah, well, hopefully answering the right question. I don't want to take your answers. But one thing, what is really interesting for me has been the esports. And you usually like spectators.
Ense.
Yeah, well, it's not only the Counter-Strike and these games, but there's a lot of new games. What can be streamed, what can be viewed, and then also gives a nice challenge and new opportunities as a game developer. And design the game is okay, how about there's we are having this as a sport. Multiplayer games and so on. So that's something, because there's of course being so deep in the game is sometimes forget that what's the world outside. But that's also bring the game industry, game developers closer to the other audience as well. As when the esports match has been showing public television, and they're getting a lot of viewers. There's there are a lot of different things one kind of new industry around that. So that's interesting. I would say okay, how about when we go to a virtual reality world, start looking at that point, or how how we can make the the esports kind of thing with the new games, new technologies and so on. So that might be my answer in the next 10 years.
And community is a big part of that.
Yes,
exactly. Again, so nothing before the community.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, once again, going together, community, watching,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
streams.
It's based on the community of followers and whatnot.
Exactly.
So
Thank you. Let's see what the audience has
Alright.
asked us throughout the stream, and let's see which one is the first one.
Ooh, serious games. I'm
I will also.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, now we can read it. So, does the panel see what, with the rise of automation, the parallel rise of Ready Player One or gamer type of economy and gamification of society?
Oof.
is a big one. You can start.
I know.
I have been
This is
talking
like
automation
directed.
all the time.
Sorry, I work on the periphery, so as a researcher, I gotta tell people like, this thing is coming, it's like, we're not gonna have those McDonald's jobs anymore. What are you gonna do in the future when you need fast cash? But does the panel see a rise of automation in terms of, definitely, I mean, because we're not necessarily being, our work is valued less and less because machines are taking it. We are actually being sold fantasies of automation. Like ideas of like where all these things that I wish I could bypass so I can have the fun. In the gaming world, we can shortcut that. You want to start over, you want to repeat, you want to accumulate as much as you can and then buy that thing that you always wanted. You can do that in the game. So when it comes to, I just wish that we kept it to the games, not the economy.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to Ready Player One and game, well, as already mentioned with the automation and all that, like we need still people in charge of that. So therefore, like gamifying life. I mean, our lives are already gamified with so many things on our smartphones, and everything is. I mean, banks are gamified. Let's be honest. Like, and loans and whatnot. Like everything you do. Yes, they're like
I don't think
get
I
a
want
house.
that game.
No, but house loan, literally. Then you get it, and then if you do this, and then you get bonuses. Like anyway. So basic, at least in Finland.
I would
so
like to see this. This sounds awesome.
I have been actually working on one for the financial gamification, but
yes,
anyhow. But yeah,
Mortgage the game.
no, because there is like, but we are unawareingly part of this. Or like some parts of our lives are really gamified. But when it comes to like on this sort of to the society level, I don't think we are far from that. There's still people in charge of automatization, like in order to get like we are not gonna be Big Brother much. We are already in a sense, but not in the Orwell level.
Right.
I mean,
It's
or then we're just gonna go to. I'm going then off to Iceland or somewhere and just like no one cares what.
There's only 300,000 people living in Iceland, so it's very easy to kind of.
Yeah, no, but no one cares about these people there. So it's like you can just be there on the.
Orwell society.
Oh, just come to the Balkans. They don't even know where they're.
Oh, that's true. They can't even follow any.
it's perfect. No highways. Completely isolated, chilling by the Adriatic.
There is actually a very good highway in Romania, I have heard. Trans-Romanian highway. It was in Top Gear.
Funny guy.
It was in Top Gear. That's how I know it.
So
Yeah. No, but yes, it's I on the level of society, I think we are still having quite much time, or there is distance towards. But when it comes to gamification in everyday life, it's already happening in a certain scale, so it's there.
Yeah. For instance, one that we always gets passed up on is the fact that television viewing, which used to be you had like one channel, then 3 channels, then 12. Now it's not about channels. Now you actually can cocktail your sequence of episodes and what kind of psychological stimulation you need from it. So it is like it's a type of gamification that's actually it's just user choice, but then because we use these every day, these media are part of our everyday lives, they definitely end up resulting in gamification of society because I no longer have the same view of reality as you do. Because I tailored mine through my media experience.
You have your own bubble.
And you got your own.
And I don't even watch TV due to like there is everything is on that you can just stream. Like this is the thing, like no more, because every time I go there, there's just a bunch of horrible commercials. I don't understand why would I watch that. So it's
Yes.
But I guess that gamification has so many different meanings, or gamification. What does it mean? Usually when when the government is talking about gamification, it's meaning that let's find a way to make something very boring to very kind of exhilarating or very funny. That's their way of thinking of gamification. It's something which brings joy to the paying taxes or something like that. So and I think that we are far away from that point. But when it comes to this kind of game-like mechanics or game-like things, gameplay kind of things are basically infiltrating to our yes, I agree with you guys that it has already happened. Since, for instance, let's think about Facebook. People are posting to Facebook or some other social media for likes, and getting those likes or comparing those likes is like a leaderboard, it's like a game itself.
That's right, yeah.
So this kind of gamification of things has already happened, but we haven't just noticed it.
But regarding gamification, for example, in banks, that is now the comment. Basically, it's not about being fun. It's about communicating it to the level of the common language of the person, because people have this sort of, when you have a banks or taxes or topics like that, no one wants to do it. Like these Kela forms, you want to kill yourself to go through the Kela form. So there's like no, this is so they are trying to use gamification to actually communicate it better to common people. Like that's the, because
and
we are so
kind of models we have created in the games industry, rewarding the players and this kind of new kind of user interfaces and all kind of models which has been created in games industry years and years ago.
Because we are so good in making that for Riot. We are so good. Oh yeah.
So good.
but yeah, so that's what they need us to do in different areas.
It's kind of scary because when something then gets over gamified, I'm talking far future, maybe it turns around, it becomes work again, where the game itself is the work.
Yeah, that might happen actually.
Yeah.
And then it's not
veil ideology between, you know. There was an instance in 2006 when Steve Bannon went to South Korea, you know, and he started one of the first gold mining, World of Warcraft gold mining companies, and he was employing South Korean kids who were coming from, you know, basically peasant backgrounds. They lived outside of cities and wanted to transition. They would be working, grinding for WoW gold, and American kids and European kids were the buyers. So they're literally doing the same thing.
As in the 80s,
one sees it at work, the other one sees it at play. You know? And that's sort of, but it's, I think, you know, in all of this I see like I can't believe I'm going to say this, but
then you
like,
shouldn't.
No. You know, 20 years ago when I the thing was like, oh, you know, globalization is going to change things. You know, capitalism, industrialization of the world, it will spread through enabling companies to actually much more fluidly deal globally. And this gaming is actually one of the only places where you can say that, like, you know what, that is happening. It's not as rosy or just black and white as we would like it to be, but it is certainly spreading value and development around.
Reminds me about coal mining. So peasants mining coal for
rich kids in Europe.
But they're not mining coal anymore, and I think that distinction is really important.
They are,
you know?
Well, in that
no
sense
black lung, you know?
no
early death.
We have improved as a human race, but basically we are still using the same pattern.
Yeah, this pattern might not be the best, but
maybe we can evolve past that.
Well, you know.
Might not.
But I think there's another question. So how could we improve serious gaming and other educational games situation in the future?
Do you start or do I start?
Whichever.
Well, I can go first. So I think that one of the things is that usually when we think about educational games, we think too much about the education and too little the game. So most of the educational games are just plain boring, and that's the biggest obstacle for educational games ever to be anything else than laborsome task for some poor kid who has to do them. And it's never the story with the games. Nobody plays the games except the gold miners in South Korea because if it's boring. And the educational games should be it should be first the game and then it should be educational.
I just wanted to say that that's the biggest issue, because how to improve? Improve it that you don't have teachers developing these games.
I didn't say that.
I am a teacher. I'm a certified teacher, and therefore I have right to say this. Don't have teachers or teachers' children or teachers' nephews developing games for you.
5 meters distance. So you.
But can they be part of the
50 million.
feedback loop still?
So
Like-
the thing is that collaborate with developers. Developers love working with the different challenges. That's our job. We find solution for challenges. Every topic, like educational side, it's a challenge. It's either like now we're working with quantum physics. Like it's a challenge for us as developers. But it's like we work closely. So you have to work closely with teachers or whichever other serious games. It's not just education. It can be healthcare, industrial engineering. It can be anything. So basically, work together very closely. But designer does designing, teacher does gives the content that we need to know what, of course, is the aim of that game, because that's the thing. That's like, how do you, the whole process of design still game first. Then, and the content is there, of course, with teacher, but it has to be hand in hand. So the biggest issue that I see in Hopitus games and is just simply not done by developers. Because that's obvious. Like I said, like no one there with any knowledge of game design, which makes the content engaging and motivating and exciting and whatnot. Even if it's whatever the topic is, you can always do it. I mean, think about it. Even with the games themselves. I mean, there's no such a thing as bad story, bad idea. Well, Mario, who is, I mean, he is an Italian guy high on mushrooms, going through you know, sewers to save the princess. Like, and then he
don't eat mushrooms. No, eat mushrooms.
Eat mushrooms. Yeah. But the thing is that, so there's no such a thing as bad idea. It's just like, how do you communicate? How do you make it into an actual interactive experience? And that's the thing. That's lacking there. And I hope that there will be more collaboration between the professionals like that in different, like the teachers, and together with developers in order to make the successful serious games.
So basically, we have been talking about coal. So basically, this whole story is that it's people often see that the games as some kind of secret sauce. So you take a piece of coal and you dip it to the secret sauce, and it tastes good after that. Well, the truth is that the top layer of it tastes good, but the inside of the piece is still cold. And this is how we usually see games or gamification in education, that there is this educational coal which we dip to the secret sauce of games or gamification. Then we serve it as a game, and people taste it and they immediately notice that, okay, the layer is game, but actually this content is cold.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Part of what I think you're saying,
you understand
correct me
part
if
of
you're
it.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, is I think before we can answer the question about educational games in this context, we have to really face up to like how much of our educational or public education system is still based on industrial socialization. Like there's so much that kids can learn, like in a week, like whole first, second grade, outside of the social realm. It really does not require 2 years of schooling. We keep these kids in prisons basically until they're of age to run away, right? And sell it to everybody else. It's like, oh no, they need to be educated. Like, no, but a lot of this is not really education, is it? It's forced babysitting. It's like trying to socialize you to sit in the place and wait for the ring of the bell before you get up.
You are causing a meeting with those kind of
Please, I mean that's yeah.
Yeah, well, Finnish education is a bit over, sort of like higher quality than some that I have experienced in my life as well. When it's more like no choice, not like you do it all by the book, like in good old times. But thankfully we don't live in a. I mean, of course, in some countries it's still the same, but at least in Finland the quality of education is extremely high, and this whole change also in curriculum that is happening within the schooling system here, it's really remarkable. So and I can follow that again through my kid and the stuff that she already this year we could choose does she want to start as an extra lesson having programming or something else from the head? And of course, hell, I need a programmer in the house. So, so it's like programming. Woo! But and you know, choices of the classes that you already have after 3rd grade. Like it's really nice. Before it was only maybe language that you can pick, but basically now you have options. You have actual options that might fit you. I mean, she's into robotics, so that's why it's a cool thing to have. But I'm hoping that there will be more game development. Yeah. And but yeah, it's all in all, it's here in Finland at least. I see a really big like gamification and using the tech with the education is kind of there, going better. I think it's still there is a need to communicate more and collaborate more between these professionals. That's lacking, definitely, but the essential initiative is there. People want to have edu games, they want to work on this, and developers want to work on that. So therefore there is initiative. Now just to see how to make it work, so that it is that the end user, again, is having fun and learning and not being, you know, like stressed to do some now, just something digital instead of paper because it doesn't make, so it's yeah. Definitely.
As far as I know, the most widely used educational game is actually Minecraft and different modes of
That's
Minecraft.
True.
Yeah. And Minecraft in the origin, it wasn't an educational game at all, but it has been used for educational purposes. And I guess that there is actually many games which could be used as educational purposes when treated properly. So, for instance, obviously which comes to my mind is Angry Birds, because it's all about the physics. It's all about the physics of the movement. So these kind of things, we should be more open for different kind of possibilities using games as a tools of education instead of saying that we have to find to fit the games to the old educational model.
Yeah, actually, so I started thinking about the educational games in my life. I think the most influential games was like Sierra games and LucasArts games, you know, Police Quest and Monkey Islands. They were fun games. I was playing them.
Where is Carmen San Diego? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just, you know, like playing those games which were fun, and I accidentally learned English.
Yeah.
You know, way better than in schools.
Yeah.
So I think like my idea about saying pretty much what you were saying is like, well, don't bring me a game which is like, okay, now you learn this kind of stuff. It's like, hey, you know, let's do some fun things together as a Minecraft. And
Learning,
like, whoa,
yes, because learning, the essence of learning is through discovery. If you discover it yourself, that's where that, you know, feeling of achievement and discover, that's when it sticks to you. Not just the reading something, getting there, and then maybe answering some questions. That's not. Interactive learning is about discovering. And that's something that what we in games have, like in point and clicks are the best for learning language. Like, same thing. Like so I mean, with Indiana Jones and everything else. But it's that's where what's lacking there. Not giving content to kids through edu games, but making them discover those answers and things there through interactive narrative, if possible. Because that is so there, and visual narrative. Because we are not here talking, when we talk about narrative, at least in my sense, I don't talk about walls of text. I talk about visual narrative, because stuff that you actually, because images stay in our minds much longer than any text or any current also medium.
So it would be like a discovery, is like, you know, the keyword here.
Discovery, yes.
Collateral learning.
Yes.
I think we still have time for at least one question. How can we realistically eliminate the need for crunch in game development? Oh, that's a hard one. Anybody want to take?
Experience, product planning,
Project management.
Project management.
Yeah. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. You haven't done this before. There's tons of books on people who actually have done it, and plan better, for crying out loud.
Yes.
It's not that difficult. Figuring out a production cycle of 12 months, it's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of discipline.
Don't add last minute features.
Yeah.
It's more maybe a culture
feature
thing.
creeps.
Yeah, no feature creeps. Totally.
I guess it's like experience and culture that kind of mixes together to make sure that this is, and knowing that it's a bad thing and not pushing for it.
But-
I guess that it can't always be avoided because there is circumstances where things change. For instance, for some reason you have to reschedule launch like 2 weeks earlier than it was used to, or than it was mentioned to be, or something like this. So something like this happens every now and then, and in that way, crunching is sometimes required. But crunching as a company culture is very toxic. We have seen it in so many cases, not in Finland necessarily, but for instance, in some cases in other countries, we have seen how toxic it is. And trying to, as mentioned, many good advices, trying to plan things so that crunch is not kind of written into your project plan is the key. So don't glorify crunch. Don't fucking glorify crunch because it's nothing to glorify.
No.
It's immense stress for everybody.
And if you do have to, like again, things happen, you have to do something and crunch, then make sure, I mean, leaders of the team, management has to make sure that the team is rewarded in any way, like appreciate your team, because these are the people that make magic happen. You relate, so please reward them, whatever it is. Give them a week off, doesn't matter. Point is, do something. Just saying that, give them something in return, because otherwise, I mean, plans do change, life changes, things, but still make sure that there is that balance. And another thing is that I have to say, as workaholic, I don't like if developers also see certain. They want to stay longer at work or something, and they enjoy doing it. So this is like, if we are talking here about crunching that is pushed to you as a team, that's a different thing. But I love doing stuff, and then I end up doing just a little bit to fix this, and then I'm another. But the thing is that I enjoy what I'm doing, so I don't feel like crunching, which is not good. I know it's a self-control which I lack, but is it then crunch? Is it crunch if I stay a little bit longer at work because I want to finish something and then I'm so happy that it works and it's there? I don't know, but it's an individual.
I don't think it's a crunch.
Well,
I think you're right.
It's not a crunch, but of course, if you overwork yourself,
no, but
that's a different issue.
But it is a designer's symptom. It's the smallest difference which can be seen by anyone but you.
Yes.
You are going well beyond the border where nobody else can see any difference anymore. And I have been producer 25 years. I have been dealing with this issue with a lot. So there is a point where the design doesn't give any added value for anybody else except the designer, and then the producer has to say that now stop working.
Yes. But what if you're a CEO? What if you're a CEO? And then I end up like, hello, bye, go everyone. Oh, it's time for you to go home. Go home, and then I'm like, it's a me time. But no, I'm joking. Just I'm talking about the creative moment, because the same thing is that if you, as any creative, anyone who is an artist by any means, it doesn't matter in which field, if you have that moment that you are in creative mode, if you're doing it, I would rather do it then when it's all there, so clear, so good, and you know, unless it's burning you. Of course, if you doesn't feel right, go like that, leave it for tomorrow. But if you are in that moment, I say go for it, because that's something that really is inside you. You want to take it out and feels good. At least I don't feel exhausted after these sessions. But crunch, like I have been in moments that I was pushed to crunch. No, that's not okay. Previously, yeah.
So we're running out of time. We still have some questions, but sadly we won't have time to probably answer them, or what the producer says. Take one. Okay, we can extend the time. So is the top one. What should I be studying to enter the games industry within the next 4 years, either as a designer or developer?
Whatever rocks your boat.
Well, first of all, get the attitude of like constant learning.
Yes.
Whole your life. Of course, it's nice to have like different talents, but the thing is like, what is that you really? What is that you wanna do? Like, you know, are you like more visual kind of person? Like, you know, audio, or do you have ideas? As well, the thing is like you can start like trying out ideas like by yourself with, you know, the tools we have. So I don't have a, you know, like clear answer to this.
I have one. There is a list of Finnish game education on NeoGames website, neogames.fi education or alan koulutus, And there you can find a list of different kind of education. One way to approach this question is to go through what kind of education there is available, and then try to choose the one which suits best with the luxury boat.
Because basically, whatever is your closest university that has game education, or even if it doesn't, still use those channels to find the answer what really fits you. And I would say also, I mean, as IGDA Finland, we can always, I mean, if you come to the gatherings in any of the cities that have hubs, like start being part of the community in that sense, that see what's happening, like be active locally, wherever you are. And there you will also get information.
5 seconds.
I'm done.
Say something for the last 5 seconds.
For the last 5 seconds, oh my god, the pressure is unreal.
Yeah,
that was it.
Devstv
Okay. No. So now we have an announcement from devstv. I'm gonna ask Santeri to come over and sit down in my chair, and I'll be back in a moment.
I'll just jump over here. Oi.
Hello.
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 Thank you everybody for joining the stream, coming here.
Thank you for having us.
And well, this devs talk will have that one active. Yeah. This devs talk will now be a monthly thing, starting from 18th of April. So mark your calendars. We'll have the next panel, no guests, no topics, and that's
live audience.
More interesting guests than we were.
yeah, more interesting guests than you were. And
Yes.
next time we'll also have live audience. So next time we'll be producing this live at Kapsäkki downstairs. So follow our social media to stay updated. Reserve the tickets. The event will be free. Starting from now, every month. And by the way, at devs.tv site we have updated a form, application form, to be first beta testers within our new service. So sign up, go there, there's a big green button, click that, fill out the form, and hopefully you will be within our service.
Exciting.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Shall
Thank you.
we give applause?
Thank you for everything.
Are we free?
Anna, are we free?